So school is great for many things, like making friends and having fun and memorizing the quadratic formula.
Turn to page 394.
But it fails to prepare us for the real world, where we've got to do things like manage our finances and deal with annoying managers and figure out what the hell to actually do with our lives. So after interviewing a huge range of ridiculously successful people on my podcast, from academics to multi-millionaire entrepreneurs to YouTubers to life coaches, I've learned so many lessons that I wish we were taught in school. And so in this video, we're going to go through 7 of my personal favorites. So the first lesson comes from Tim Armu, who is an entrepreneur here in the UK, and he sold his first company for several tens of millions of dollars at the age of 27.
One of the things that I really enjoyed working with, high performing people is that they just generally have a bias towards action. They know that they can try several things and maybe quite a few of them would flop, but they're not concerned with that. They're just concerned with taking as many shots on goal.
So the thing school teaches us is to be very risk averse. Because of the system of grading and assignments, we put in a lot of effort and then we hand it in and then we get a grade back. And often that grading system can lead to a lot of perfectionism and a lot of anxiety, especially when leaderboards and rankings and stuff are involved. When we get an assignment at school, there's usually a deadline and there are no prizes for getting in the thing early or for doing twice as many or 10 times as many things. All that matters is just that one piece of packaging, that little thing that you hand to the teacher and then they grade you. And that's just not how things work in the real world. In the real world, if you want to succeed, a lot of it is about just doing lots and lots and lots of the thing that you're trying to do. Like if you're trying to make a career in almost any creative field, it's way more important that you try and get lots of clients and get lots of practice in than you spend absolutely ages trying to hone and perfect that one specific thing. And definitely one of the characteristics of the most successful people I have ever met and interviewed through the podcast or anything else is just that they have this bias towards action. They spend a lot less time overthinking doing the thing and a lot more time actually doing the thing. And one of the lessons that I've really learned over the last 6 years of growing this YouTube channel is that action is really the foundation and overthinking can be sprinkled on top of it. It's something I say to my students in my part-time YouTuber Academy, that you're allowed to overthink your niche or whatever, your strategy, all you like, as long as you are taking action. But if you're trying to do all of the strategy stuff and trying to think a lot before you even do anything at all, then you're not really gonna get anywhere. And there's a nice quote that I often think about, which is that it's a lot easier to steer a moving ship than a stationary ship. So if you right now are struggling with something where you are staying stationary and you're letting overthinking paralyze you from taking action, recognize that it's way easier to change course once you've already started moving, so have that bias towards action. Oh, by the way, quick thing, as a bit of a celebration for hitting 4 million subscribers and as a thank you for you guys, we are giving away an enormous amount of stuff to one lucky winner as part of the Productivity Booster Kit. So we are giving away this M2 chip 13-inch MacBook Pro, along with some AirPod Pros, along with a pen, along with some of my favorite books, Atomic Habits, 4-Hour Work Week, Make Time, this Leuchtturm notebook, which is literally the notebook that I use on a daily basis, a couple of other books, Keep Going by Austin Kleon, 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Burkeman, and we are also giving away a Kindle Paperwhite with a nice little case for it, and we are giving away the Logitech MX Master 3S mouse, which is again literally the mouse that I use. So basically all of the digital and analog products that I swear by are all part of this $2,000 prize pool giveaway. If you'd like to enter the giveaway, then there is a link in the video description. Just put in your email address. It'll ask you if you'd like to subscribe to Sunday Snippets, which is my completely free weekly email where I share productivity insights and talk about tools and books and stuff that I've read. But yeah, you can join the giveaway and then one lucky person will get all of this stuff shipped to them almost anywhere in the world. There are a few places where we cannot ship stuff because of various postal constraints that are outside of our control, so apologies for that, but all the details are on the giveaway page where you can check that out if you want to win all this stuff. So thanks again for letting us hit 4 million subscribers. You guys are the best. Lesson number 2 comes from Alex Hormozi, who is another entrepreneur with a net worth of over $100 million, for whatever that's worth, and this is what he had to say.
It's a whole S&P 500 versus SME 500, but like you will get a significantly higher return investing in your own ability to make money than you will in any market. You will get outsized returns on the information, right? On the knowledge and the lessons that you will learn. And so you want to pay that ignorance down as fast as you can, because as soon as you have that knowledge, you'll be able to skyrocket straight to 20, 50, 100, 500,000 a month, like very quickly, because you know how to do it.
So the thing that school encourages us to do is to treat school as our learning time and then treat our career as our earning time. And often people will be looking at things like, oh, I could get this job because the starting salary is X, or this kind of stuff. But really, learning is a lifelong endeavor, and especially after you leave school and when you actually join the workforce or you actually try to start a business, that is where the bulk of your learning is really done. Like in medicine, for example, you spend 6 years in medical school, but the first 2 weeks that you're actually working as a doctor, the amount of stuff you learn in that 2 weeks is like way, way, way more dense and way more like immediately accessible than the stuff that you learn in 6 years of medical school. And one of the key points that Hormozi says is really about this idea that as you're going through your career journey, you are always trying to pay down ignorance debt. Like the reason that you don't make $10 million a year right now, I suspect, is because you just don't know how to make $10 million a year. And therefore, not knowing how to make $10 million a year is costing you and me around $10 million a year. It's like there's this whole ignorance debt that we have to pay off. And the people who are making $1 million or $10 million a year are the ones who know how to do it. So for example, let's say you happen to have $100 to spare. You could decide to invest the money by putting it into the S&P 500 and then it grows at 5 to 7% a year. Or you could instead take that $100 and invest it in improving and learning your own skills. And the return on that is way higher than the value you're going to get putting it in stock market index funds. Like you could spend that $100 on buying 10 business books that are all about how to get rich if you want to make money. And those would give you way higher returns than the paltry returns you're going to get in the stock market. And then even in the jobs that you choose, you really want to prioritize learning rather than earning, especially towards the start of your career. So in this video, we've been talking about loads of different ways in which you can learn the skills that school didn't teach you. And if you're looking for a platform to learn the skills on, then you might like to check out Skillshare, who are very kindly sponsoring this video. Now, Skillshare is great. It is a fantastic online platform for online classes in all sorts of areas, from productivity, interior design, tech, cooking, business, so much stuff. And I've actually been a teacher on Skillshare since 2019 for nearly 4 years now. And on Skillshare, I've got around a dozen online classes where I teach the things that I know around things like productivity, which is a really valuable skill, and how to study for exams, which is a valuable skill that they actually don't teach you in school. And the team at Skillshare have very kindly put together a customized productivity learning path. And on that learning path, completely for free, you can take the classes in the order in which I recommend them. And so by following those classes, you can level up your productivity, which will be fantastic for any career that you want to do. And the best part is you can access all of these classes on Skillshare, including all of the ones that I've got on there, completely for free by taking advantage of the 1-month free trial offer. So if you are one of the first 1,000 people to hit the link in the video description, then that will allow you to sign up for a month completely for free, where you can test drive the platform and see if you like it. And then when your trial is up, you can choose to become a paying subscriber if you like. So check out my productivity learning path on Skillshare, and thank you so much, Skillshare, for sponsoring this video. All right, lesson number 3 comes from Grace Beverly, who is another multimillionaire entrepreneur. I happen to interview a lot of these people on the podcast, and Grace started off her career as a fitness influencer and is now running 2 hugely successful companies. And this is her take on self-care.
So I think that's one of the main triggers for the book was actually the fact that like people would be like, oh, self-care, relax. And I'd be like, actually, sometimes self-care is meeting that deadline that you're currently not on track to meet, but actually respecting your future self and your goals is getting the up and doing the work that you need to do for that. And like, we cannot market self-care as always like doing nothing. Sometimes self-care is working harder because you're currently not working in line with what you want to make happen.
So school doesn't teach us a lot about the idea of self-care or about how to look after ourselves, but occasionally in like lessons in school and even sometimes at university, you'll get the idea that self-care is like making time for yourself and having a bath and taking a mindful walk in nature and all of that kind of fun stuff. And while that stuff is important, I think Grace's point here is that often what self-care looks like is productivity. Sometimes self-care is genuinely working harder than you currently are because actually you want to be at a certain place and you know that being at that place will ease up some kind of stress in your life. Maybe it's financial. And so in those contexts, the best form of self-care is maybe to start that side hustle or to get a little bit better at your job, rather than doing a binge of 3 hours of whatever on Netflix. All right, tip number 4 is another piece of career advice that they often don't teach you in school. And this comes from Daniel Priestley, who is another multimillionaire serial entrepreneur and a book author. And here is what he recommends about your first job outside of school or university.
It's massively useful to join someone else's startup. Like, I would highly recommend that to absolutely anyone. So here's what goes wrong with a lot of young people. They go to careers fairs and all that sort of stuff. It's only big corporates that exhibit, so they end up being funneled down the big corporate path. You know, just things like, how do you send out like a big bulk email to a list, or where do you get a list from, or like how do you sit down and have a lunch and negotiate a joint venture? For me, my 2 years doing that when I was 19 to 21, I actually got to sit in on those meetings.
So school and university and career counselors tend to only really encourage us to work for big corporations, because big corporations are generally the only ones who can afford to have the talks at the universities and have their brochures displayed at careers fairs. Big corporations are also the ones that career counselors are going to be more familiar with. But relatively speaking, there's only a tiny number of companies that are actually big corporations, and there are millions more that are small businesses that have between 0 and 10 employees. Now, the issue with getting a corporate job is that you are a very small cog in a very, very, very big machine. And so your capacity for learning is actually very limited because it's confined to learning within your own role or learning within the role of just like your direct manager. Whereas if you join a small startup instead that has fewer than 10 employees, you'll suddenly learn everything about the whole business. You'll probably get visibility over the revenue and the profits and how the company's thinking about setting goals and how management works and how leadership works and how hiring and firing and onboarding and accounting and all the different skills associated with running a business work. So that even if you don't aspire to run your own business someday, but especially if you do, working at a small startup instead of a big corporation massively levels up your ability to learn. And this is true even if the big corporation is fancy and the small company is tiny. Like for example, you'd probably learn way more about business by working for a small plumbing company than you would learning about a massive industry that you're a small cog in if you joined a big management consulting firm, for example. And the great thing is, you can always join the big corporation later on once you've learned those interesting skills about how to run a business that you've learned from working at a startup. But often, if you work for a big corporation, you get the golden handcuffs, and then you're used to a certain standard of living and they pay loads of money. And then you won't want to take a pay cut in the future, whereas straight out of university or straight out of school, that's the best time to work for these small businesses. Oh, and if you're enjoying these tips so far, I would love it if you can drop a cheeky thumbs up on the video. It really helps support the channel. All right, tip number 5 comes from Professor Grace Lorden, who is a professor of behavioral economics at the London School of Economics. And she has written this fantastic book, Think Big, Take Small Steps and Build the Future You Want, which is really about evidence-based career advice. And this is what she has to say about choosing a career.
Because I've noticed a lot of times when I talk to people about careers, they're attached to a label. So they want to be a trader or an investment banker, or they want to be a doctor, or they're attached to a lifestyle. So they want to be able to go on a particular vacation or buy a particular car. And the kind of Think Big journey is really thinking about, if I were to be a doctor, if I were to be a trader, what would be the tasks that I would be doing on a day-to-day basis? And would I ultimately end up enjoying those tasks? So the activities that I'm going to spend the time in.
And again, school encourages us to focus on the title. If a career counselor asks what you want to be when you grow up, they might expect you to say banker or lawyer or doctor or engineer or that kind of thing. And all these are really just titles. Like, they don't actually tell you very much about what you're going to be doing day to day. But what basically all the evidence from behavioral science says is that if you really want to build a career that you love, and feel fulfilled in your career, it's a lot more about the actions that you're taking day to day rather than what job title is on your business card. And so this idea of task-centric rather than title-centric career planning is another skill that you can learn outside of school, that you should learn outside of school, that school is almost never going to teach you. All right, for tip number 6, we are back to Tim Armu, the entrepreneur who sold his company for several tens of millions at the age of 27.
But it's very important to focus on like the skills and actually cultivating skills which can then lead to money, which is things like, marketing and sales and copywriting, things like that. Like, you want to focus on just like being of use to the economy, because if you're of like general use in some way, people will pay you for that. And like, that's the way that you create value.
So the things that we learn in school tend not to be correlated with the things that actually contribute to career or economical or financial success. And so if you're trying to make money or trying to get rich or whatever the thing might be, it's worth appreciating what are the skills specifically that increase your own personal stock price, that increase your ability to add value to the economy, and that therefore will increase the salary that you can earn if you're an employee, and also the profits you can generate if you start your own business. So for example, in school, you can learn a lot about maths and calculus and stuff, but you learn very little about reading a financial balance sheet, or even about using a program like Microsoft Excel, which is actually a hugely valuable skill for the economy. In history, you might learn about the kings and queens of England, but you're unlikely to learn about the rise and fall of different economic and financial systems, which again is knowledge that is more directly applicable and will be more likely to help you if you do have the goal of making money further down the line. And so really, after school, it comes back to this point of learning. You want to learn the skills that will improve your own ability to be successful in whatever field you set your mind to. Oh, and by the way, just in case you didn't know, I actually have a podcast. It's called Deep Dive with Ali Abdaal, where I've done these interviews from, and that is available completely for free on any podcast app, including its very own YouTube channel. So if you're like me and you vibe with the idea of lifelong learning, then you can listen in as I personally learn from all of these people that I'm interviewing. And then tip number 7 comes from professional poker player, author, and entrepreneur Chris Sparks.
And I think a lot of success in life comes down to playing in the right game, playing in the place that you have some sort of advantage. And even if that advantage is you just enjoy doing this more, you have more fun at it, thus you're have an easier time dedicating yourself to it. putting yourself into it.
Now, I love this. I love this idea of exploiting your competitive or unfair advantages. This, I think, is one of the biggest things that makes the difference between successful entrepreneurs or creators and the less successful ones, in that generally the successful ones have found a way to exploit some kind of natural advantage. And the problem with school is that it encourages everyone to pursue similar things. There's a national curriculum. You get a defined list of things that you have to do. In the real world, true value is unlocked by just being really good at one specific thing and really doubling down on it. Like Roger Federer does not need to be an all-rounder. He adds value to the world and to the economy by just being really good at one specific thing. Similarly, if you're trying to build a business, you don't try and need to be something to everyone. You don't try and need to make the next Amazon or the next Walmart that's trying to sell everything. You just have to be very good at doing one specific service or making one specific product. And it can be super niche, but if you have an unfair advantage in that space, it's way easier to be successful exploiting that unfair advantage than it is to become successful by kind of slowly shoring up the general areas that you're weak in. Now, at this point, you might be thinking, okay, cool, but like to learn all this stuff, which is what we seem to be emphasizing in this video, we need to manage our time pretty well and we need to find a way to make more time. And so this video is how I get the absolute most out of my time. So thank you for watching and I will see you there.